To all dear friends, I can't help but laugh a little because we did it. We convinced Luna to come and do the interview. Hello, Luna. Hello, dear. Hello, Claude. Hello, everyone. Thanks. Of welcome. She's very excited. She's never done interviews, but it has very interesting information, and we'll divide its information into 2 videos. This is where she, explains the information she has, is a video where I'll read some information that was passed to me, which will be published in an upcoming book. Correct? Correct, exactly. The book will largely focus on these topics. Then, they will expand on others as well. But, basically, the point is what I'll talk to you about today. Yes, exactly. We want to say a few words about the video of the shaman of the light tunnel that you commented on. Okay. The shaman, definitely yes. I can say a few words. But let's say that maybe. I'll elaborate on this topic at the end because, to make you understand my point of view regarding this experience, I have to inevitably explain some things because otherwise, I'll say things now that will become incomprehensible later. Let's say that what I can say now is that for a piece of the walk, let's say she saw us. Right, in the sense that what she has defined a light that blinds and warms. In a way, that is truly artificial. That's what I saw. 2. This tunnel of light is not a tunnel of light. Anyway, they're always portals, you said that too. I've never seen them as tunnels. I've always seen them as portals, basically dimensional portals. Of a circle, but that don't create a tunnel dimensionality, but rather a dimensional space gateway. But its details, this isn't relevant. I'll slip up and say it too. The word tunnel, but tunnel vary. So we're talking about the same. What? This tunnel of false light, tell me, is it okay? No, I thought you were done. Compared to the information Revo brought about these amniotic circle tunnels. Yes, do you know it? Yes. I've listened to Revo more and more times to try and decode its language as much as possible. Yes. So, I don't see it exactly like that. I mean, for me, the process is more complex. Okay? When you enter the false light, which is what the shaman saw, more complex things happen than just trivially removing memories. Because in reality, they can't truly take our memories away. Memories are stored in the soul, and the soul, from this perspective, cannot be distorted. Okay? What happens is a process. A temporary amnesia of the mind. Okay? So it's a different aspect. But it's not like you just enter, and they automatically make you dumb. It's a more complex process that, if you want, we can talk about bit by bit. Sure. First of all, I would like to. We'll talk about the rest of the shaman later, because this way I can explain myself better. First of all, I need to explain to all of you my language and how I have, in quotes, structured the frequencies. Because what is called realms, worlds, planes, etc., are not static, granite environments with absolute limits. They are flows, frequencies, that have their own substance because they resonate with specific frequency aspects that we emit, and that all others also emit. Beings. Okay? So, I use the terms matrix, as you also heard from Ricardo Tristano Tais. Because we're collaborating, and we've used these terms a bit to step outside the box. Let's say traditional, to not entering into strange egregore, right? Wrong, it doesn't matter. But the concept of matrices, for me, are 7, okay? The frequencies that are perceived are 7, macroscopically speaking, and we can conceive them, relative to the indications that even at a scientific level have been identified in the spectrum. So infrared, visible light, ultraviolet, and so on. Okay? So macroscopically speaking, we can divide these macro frequencies into matrices. But as I said before, they're granite-like. There isn't an absolute wall between one and another because they are flows. So it's like these realms, in quotes, share a space, but not at a time and they are interconnected with each other. You tune into these zones, always in quotes. Unfortunately, the language we have is extremely linear and polarized. So I struggle to express myself as best I can. Let's say, these concepts. But try to understand me because, you need to open your mind a bit from a certain point of view. A bit more multidimensional. Not flat, not linear. So the terms are what they are. Expand them in your mind. That said, so matrix 1, M1, which is more convenient for me, concerns our world. The material one, which also has inside what I call submatrices, which are 7, representing the various levels of density from the stones to the electromagnetic biofield we have. Okay? Which is at the level of our last submatrix. But it's always related to M1. After that, there's M2, which is the one that comes, commonly referred to as astral. Astral is a macro frequency aligned with all emotions. So the second body. So, the first body is our physical body. The second body is the astral body. The one you normally use when, voluntarily or involuntarily, you exit the body in the early experiences, so you find yourself in. Next to your body, you might see the dresser and the bed that are slightly different, like shadows of the matter itself. And that is the first level of the submatrix of matrix 2. Okay? Then, there are many others. After that, there's M3, which is the defined plane of light. It's the mental plane that is also in frequency with us, where our mental aspect expands, where ideas expand, illusions, everything. That is an image. Okay? These 3 matrices are the dual matrices. From there to go up or from there to go down, it depends on your point of view. Because in reality, space in this sense doesn't exist, and non-dual matrices expand. But what interests us is to understand that. What happens, how to move, and how to, let's say, get out of here, is to first understand the nature of these 3 dual matrices. Okay? So, I won't spend too much time discussing the other non-dual matrices, because we need to. Let's get out of here first. We can't get into discussing the others. So when I talk about M1, I'm talking about Earth. That is, of our material mountain. When I talk about M2, it's what is astral. Emotions, which is M3, and instead the plane of light. The mental plane. And so far, I'd say it's pretty clear, simple. Okay. Tell me if I was clear. Right. Yes, of course. Perfect. So, the discussion of the VAR. So, when a person dies or has an NDE experience, what happens is, more or less, a whole series of processes where, first of all, you leave the body permanently, and while you're leaving the body, you see if you're lucid, obviously, because that doesn't always happen. You see what can truly be defined as a tunnel at this point, but which actually has nothing to do with it. With the portals, it's the channel through which you leave the physical body. meaning it's a conscious passage of the ordinary mind. So conscious, subconscious, and so on, into the second body, which is the emotional body. It's the astral body. By doing this, practically dying, all energies first of all concentrate at the heart's height. It's really a recovery movement. Before, the whole field was expanded. After that, it all concentrates in the heart. From there, there's a vertical movement that takes you towards, if everything goes well, towards the crown. Very good. This passage. Okay? This is the passage of this first tunnel you see. So when you're in the passage of the crown, you actually see this light. But it's not the tunnel of light. Neither of the two tunnels of light. It's just a total dimensional passage. This thing. I've lived it personally. Not because I had an indie experience. It's just that among other things. Among the various outings I've had, I've tried them all in every way possible. Which is why this also happened to me. When it is. The first time it happened, I thought I was about to die because it was exactly equivalent to the descriptions of many indies I had already read. This happened many years ago, almost 20 years ago, I'd say. Yes. So anyway, the first step is not. It's not a tunnel of light. It's just the passage from your consciousness. Let's say, ordinary, and everything that the mind carries into the second body. Okay, so you exit and normally. But obviously they are. How to say passages? Extremely subjective. But normally, so a normal person, and I know because I've seen them do this thing here. Okay? Because, well, I didn't introduce myself. But you know, in a way, I've been working with these things for as long as I can remember. Because I've seen a bit of everything for a long time. So I've gained enough experience to share what I'm telling you. In short, in the end, it's nothing set in stone. From nowhere. These are my experiences. If you ask me some questions about things I haven't seen, I'll tell you I don't know. Period. Because I will never tell you something that is not part of my direct experience. At most, I'll tell you I heard that. Otherwise, I won't tell you anything. Okay? I'll only tell you what I know. That concerns my direct experiences. So what I say is a summary. Let's say, of all that was, the summer experience. The experiences of my life. So, sorry, parenthesis. So let's get back to us. You leave the body. At that moment. Normally, human identity. Be careful, I never use the term soul because we are not just souls. We are complex entities. And this thing about the soul, we'll clarify it one day. But our essence is a combination, absolutely not divisible. That's why I use the term entities. Human entities, if it concerns us, or other entities, if it concerns others. Anyway, we leave the body and theoretically find ourselves as ghosts. In the sense of ghosts, theoretically, the term theoretically isn't quite the right term. But well, we are spirits beside ourselves. Entities beside our physical body that see relatives. They do a whole series of things, and if all goes well, a natural death, we are also quite calm. Okay? Then, you see your funeral often and willingly, etc. If death was sudden instead, like an accident, a heart attack, things like that. The transition is extremely complex because, you remain in shock, and this state is difficult to manage for a person who has no culture or awareness of the afterlife. So many find themselves in a state of shock, and it's complex because everyone arrives there. The parasites arrive. Predatory entities are arriving. They're all coming because they latch onto your confusion. They latch onto your fear. They latch onto the fact that you feel alive. But you see your dead body next to you. You see desperate relatives. You were supposed to tell them things. Panic. So this, wait, violent death is one of the most complex passages that put you in grave danger. We can, to say, even if I don't want to scare anyone regarding their emotional state, because, as I was saying before, especially a M2 lateral responds automatically to our emotional state, automatically. If here on the material plane we have a way to rectify our emotions, our thoughts, there's a time warp, if you will, where we can rectify what's happening inside of us. We can reset. Okay? So the passage of parasites, let's say, it's manageable from certain points of view. When you're dead, in the second body, in the astral, in the confusion, the emotional state becomes the protagonist. And to be able to reorient yourself is complex, unless there has been upstream. So in life, a work of awareness that makes you recognize these emotional states and brings you back into alignment. Okay? Good. What's happening? There are two options, speaking macroscopically, within the astral, within M2. So let's reiterate that the work done in life is very important once you're over there. Right? It's not that it's very important. It's the only thing that can be done. They're okay. Because when you're over there, you don't have a lot of time to think about it. One, because one of the biggest concerns people have is everything I've done. Everything I remember. Everything I'm doing is studying and practicing, and when I die, I'll remember it. It will be still part of my baggage, or not. Yes, absolutely yes. Yes, because when you're over there and you're dead. But also in the astral. Meaning when you leave your body. The mind, if you are completely lucid and aligned, the ordinary mind, also the emotional mind. Everything so conscious, subconscious, unconscious. It's like they merge in a way, and you're present. You know who you are, you still hold your identity, okay? And you remember everything, unless someone is so overwhelmed by his own emotions. As we know, we all know this situation. No, you're straight, handsome, precise, then something happens where you literally go out of phase. You don't understand anything anymore. There, it's that stuff right there. If that state of confusion, overwhelming and not reset, we have a problem. If instead, you know why you learned to do it, how to reset yourself. Because in life you've done it, and therefore there's a confirmed mental structure that allows you to get back on track. So nothing can fall. Nothing. Nothing can take you. Nothing can attack you because it's all there. So everything I'll say has to do with disembodied people, or those who don't control their minds and emotions. Then it's true that there are. Even in life, there are many parasitic entities. Egregores, larvae, fragments of human entities scattered all over the world. There's everything. Okay? But if you don't tune in, so if you don't open the door to certain frequencies, then you don't enter a match. Okay? If you don't enter a match, you can pass through the hordes and nothing touches you. Okay? And on this, I have absolute certainty because I've done it. They can't touch you if you lose your center, if you lose your state. Absolute. He's not just the warrior, he's the stationary warrior. Well done. Okay. A complete sovereignty. If you have a moment of hesitation, what causes you to hesitate will resonate with the parasitic predator, and so on, and so on. That is in. Resonates with that frequency there and there. It grabs you, it attacks you. In the astral, you see it, you perceive it. And it becomes an actual struggle. In the human environment, so in the physical body, if you don't have, let's say, certain perceptions, abilities, perceptive, you don't realize what's happening because they are extremely subtle. They enter, like you did this morning. You sent a photo where there's an image of a being whispering in your ear. No. Okay? This thing here happens. But it's not just the ear. They go inside, because it's like a form of energetic possession where they go to attack. The thought, the emotion that you had already somehow activated. So we are not absolute victims. And this is one of the fundamental messages of this whole issue. We are not absolute victims. We are the ones who open the doors. This doesn't mean we're to blame. It means having the responsibility to be present for ourselves. Okay? This is it. So, going back to astral projection. In those cases, two things can happen, and one of them definitely has nothing to do with the people listening to us. But I'm saying it anyway. And there are some people in the world who are extremely clouded, disconnected from their deep inner self. Those you call illicit. Okay. Do the illicit exist or not? Of course they do. Yes, but we'll talk about it later. Otherwise I'll go off topic. I'm going off topic. Basically, there are people who are mentally disturbed. Emotionally, those who have distorted obsessions. Deep of all kinds. With all the nuances you can imagine. Okay? Many of these people, when they go over there, they literally come. As in, they become their own obsession and find fertile ground to keep feeding it. So these guys don't even reincarnate, they just stay there. There are environments in the astral plane that are terrifyingly decadent. But truly terrifying. Because these beings they are mixed almost like a single entity with other parasites at specific frequencies and live in a loop reality where they continue to perpetuate their obsessions of any kind, sexual, homicidal, violence, that is, of everything. I don't go further, because I don't want to lower my energy. Okay? So some go over there. They slip right in there. They basically become batteries for that food, for those guys that they then aggregate to. But then they're the same ones that, with us, go to suck us in. Among the parasites are humans. It's not just aliens, so to speak, in the sense that they don't belong to this realm. Let's say, there are humans, and they are really annoying. Okay, but it's very appropriate to specify this. MHM? Okay, well, this is a group, but anyway, it doesn't interest us. Let's move on. So, always an M2 at a certain point, and based on your specific frequency. So, based on everything I just said, can be open one or more openings. This isn't very clear to me because I can clearly see them all. Okay? Because that was my intention. So I saw, let's say, the macro arches. That is, the one from M2, the one from M3, and the one from M4. Okay? But I believe, based on your specific frequency, that the connected one will open for you. So if you are in a state of confusion, you are immersed in your emotions, almost certainly M will open, M2's one, which is the false one. Like what the shaman saw. This portal is fake. It doesn't belong to the primordial structure that we'll talk about later if you want in another video. Maybe I don't know, because it's another pretty long story. There's a tunnel that belongs to the primordial structure. Yes, there is one, but then I'll explain it to you. But just a moment. We're on the false light. The false light is a fake tunnel that replicates M3's, which is the light one. Okay? That's created by non-human entities. Managed by non-human entities of various origins, the kind that divide the spoils. Each for themselves. Me, and not just me, because I often collaborate with other people, especially a girl named Rian, who is also quite advanced. Wants to come, is invited to speak. Okay, I don't think so. In the comments, dear. I don't think he wants to do it. But let's say he gave me permission to also share his experiences, which, you know, apart from some details that belong to our respective mental structures and also these aspects, we'll talk about them later if you want, correspond to the end of the fair and so okay, it's right to give a validation, first of all, for me too. Because, you know, at a certain point I always see things that I wonder about, but okay, everything's fine. Okay, so I went into one of these managed by a small group who were clearly operators, and they were behind the mask they were wearing. Meaning they were just keeping to themselves. Hiding. So I wasn't projecting anything, they were simply trying to merge with the light. Okay, but I gave the order that it's inevitable. But not because they are the ones who have to listen to you. But why, if it's your mind that makes you see them? Even. This is something to understand. It's not them who are obligated to show themselves. You are the one who tells yourself to go beyond the illusion. This is an important passage because the conversation always comes back to us. They are not the problem of, like how we make fun of them if they try to hide behind obvious masks, so grandma, the mom, aunt, Jesus, whatever it is, or how they made me almost sink into the walls, quote unquote, of this environment, because it wasn't yet a tunnel. I crossed the threshold. I entered into a room. Basically, it wasn't a tunnel. It was a bright environment. Blinding, annoying, with frequencies that were clearly fake. It's like, just to give you a sense of someone trying to replicate sunlight. Okay? Do you get that it's fake? It can have similar frequencies to a full spectrum light bulb. But it's not the only one. Okay? So you understand that something is wrong. These gentlemen, quote unquote gentlemen, at that point, they manifested to me. They were rather rudimentary locusts. Meaning, kind of ugly. And they couldn't do anything to me. They could do nothing. But what I perceive from this whole situation is what they do. Then there are also came back in another way to better understand the details. But this is it. So, if you go in there, they simulate the M3 light portal. So they pull you. But emotionally, because we're in the astral plane. So they exploit more the images that they reflect you. They exploit your emotional attraction more. Okay? In fact, I remember the shaman saying, it's you who loves. It's not them sending you love. Do you remember the initial passage? Yeah, that's right. It's not them sending you love. It's simply, they go to, how to say, amplify your emotion, amplify it. They have systems that we can call technological. But don't think of circuits. To the screws, to the metal. Because no. It's another technology. It's a technology based on, frequency and vibration. They're codes, not, computer codes as we think of them. It's another type of technology. But it doesn't matter, let's just say it's technology. So they exploit this thing through a mechanism where you feel attracted to. Emotional level. So you arrive. You feel seemingly welcome. But you immediately feel that something is wrong. So much so that the enchantment ends quite quickly, and they can project onto the base, or anyway, it's always you projecting into reality. Wait, you emit, you have images linked to emotions, and so they still bring out structures of the dream. Let's say, of imagery in the environment to allow you to feel momentarily at ease or feel momentarily uncomfortable. So that's why some see gardens, some see operating rooms, hospices, hospitals, etc. It depends on your, courts, even courts. Everything's okay. It depends on your emotional structure, your attachments, okay? In this context, they can do various things, but the first thing they normally do is simulate the review of life, which is what they then do. On the other hand, but it's a simulation, in the sense that unlike the other one, which we'll talk about later, here they force the hand in an exaggerated way, almost putting aside the beautiful things. So they almost don't let you see them. They hide them. This thing is insidious. And they exaggerate everything excessively. What you haven't understood, all the wrongdoings, all the messes you've made in life. I mean, we've all made them. This part here has no resolution. Instead of what normally happens on the other side. It just makes you feel like crap. Okay? But you're really down emotionally. This thing here, their purpose is to bring you to this level of emotional degradation, and some keep them there for a while in that state. Not inside vials, but because this thing is ideological. This whole vial thing is brilliant. It's not real for me. For me, it's everything for me. Obviously, I don't repeat it every time. I perceive the fact that they keep you there to suck out all this low-level emotional energy, which is what interests them. That stuff there is ambrosia, which has a peculiar taste. Okay. Others, however, heavily reject them, and in reincarnation. But since they've placed them in such a degraded emotional state, they automatically tune in because they were forced to. Not because. They are in quotes. A shitty life, a shitty life. I call them the places where suffering is endemic. So, excuse me, war zones, extreme poverty areas, complicated families, everything that comes to mind about a starting point that's not really good, because you're precisely you who tune in because of all this mess and are inside a life, a body, a situation, a structure that resonates with this state. Can we get out of this situation? Yes, but we're always there. If even one by mistake, whatever. By frequency you enter the false light. But you find a way, even if it's not that simple, to reestablish what I was saying before. You can break free from this situation, because they can't do anything if you're outside their schemes. But if a person knows nothing, a person endures all this because they saw Christ. They saw their mother. They have said that if he deserves it because he has to do it like that, it goes as it goes. Okay. And yes, this is generally it. Then you might encounter locusts, other beings. I know others who have seen other things. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that. What matters is what they do. Okay? And this is more or less the mode that changes depending on the person. But it's always a matter of low emotional level. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The light. The light is a gateway to M3. M3 is what is defined by cults, religions, as paradise. But it's not paradise for nothing. It pretends to be because it's corrupted. Meaning, it initially had a different structure. I'll explain it to you piece by piece. The portal emits a frequency that is that of M3, which is actually fantastic. It's the one the shaman ultimately identified as the light in which she found her essence. Okay? But that light there is beautiful. It emits a truly enveloping frequency. Really pacifying. Really familiar, and so that's a passage that if a person hasn't taken any kind of journey, if a person has no self-awareness and no intention of leaving here, is the lesser evil. It's not necessarily desirable, but it is the lesser evil rather than the false light. Honestly, or get stuck down in the infra. You know, in the astral. I say infrared every now and then because it corresponds to the frequency of the spectrum. But whatever. So the plane of light, which would be the plane of visible light compared to our spectrum. It's actually welcoming. But again, there are no more gray locusts there. Many variations, the fauna as you call it. Okay, but there are incorporeal light entities there, which are the operational levels of what we call archons. Operational levels. In the sense that they're not the heads of the pack. Okay? They're not the vertices. They're operatives. But they're of the same lineage. They're of the same shape, in a way. Even if the shape isn't. They manifest as spheres of light, or elongated, depending on how they wish to move. But they are completely formless, without appearance, because they are entities that have never incarnated. Ever. And if you don't create a resolution of light in the flesh, you will never achieve form. What does this phrase mean? And the three matrices were created. Not just ours, our matrix space, all the dual matrix spaces. Because there are so many. They were created to enjoy and experience duality. Okay? Down to the densest form, which would be ours. So the higher matrices, so the 2 and the 3, are functional to the structure of the last one, which would be ours. They're functional. Okay? So, the mental structure of the mental body, therefore, of the body of light, the emotional structure of the body, the second body, the astral body, are functional for creating imprinting in the body. Okay? These gentlemen, in general, so from the highest ranks to the lowest, these operatives I was talking about, have thought it wise to evade a mission, a task, initial, to at least in our specific case to, be operating within this flow of reincarnation that is actually necessary. But initially they just had to manage the situation without interfering in any way. The problem is that in the process there's a step that I'll tell you about now. I'm talking about the removal of emotional body, That is the second body, that is the astral body, because in the light, being of a higher frequency, high, at a certain point the body doesn't fit anymore because you enter and you are still complete in a certain sense, meaning you've lost your physical body, but the body, emotional, the ones of light are still cohesive. Okay? When you get there, to the threshold, practically, or a little further, if it can be used later, that emotional body must be removed. It must go, because the body of light must remain. Cannot stay there. When I enter the light, I have to change phase. I can't enter the light if I'm in the astral body in M3. It's just not possible. It's not feasible. There's a move you can make that's spiral-shaped and at the height of the heart where you go deep and enter at a level of awareness into the body of light that is as if it's already within us. We have it with us. Okay? But when you're there to enter the light, you need the light body. If not, you're in frequency, no match again. So when you enter there, you've disembodied everything. You've made the whole transition. At a certain point, you need to get rid of this emotional body. So they had to remove it. And then there's also all. There are several reasons why this happens, but I'll tell you later. By doing this, what happened? The emotional body carries a narrative not just of emotions. Okay? What is it that they absolutely don't care about emotions? What he cares about is the narrative. It's the experience tied to emotion. That's why they leave the low-level emotions to the others below who are functional below. The spatial terms. Pass them on in an ideational sense. Okay? They take the emotional body, the astral body to drain its experience. In what sense? Let's try to imagine something. When, for example, you, Cloud, go on a trip, okay? There's a difference. No, between traveling and seeing the same place you traveled to. Through a documentary. Right? Right. Okay. For those who travel. Yeah, I know. So what you do is a real experience. But there are people who might not be able to travel and choose to watch all the documentaries in the world. And through the images, they experience it vicariously, as if it were a reportage. Right? Okay. This is what they do. They live surrogate experiences, and that's their food, it's the experience. And it's through this that they don't even think about incarnating. That's why they keep us stuck there. Because the more experiences we have, the more we bring home from them, the happier they are. We are basically creators of reportage, and they live through this type of energy, which is a narration. Okay? Alright, with that said, what do these guys do at the beginning? They reappear. The first impression is you see Grandma again. Aunt and the dog. Jesus, Krishna, Buddha. Whoever you prefer, but it's not their form. What do? They project. Actually, you see glowing shapes. Beautiful ones that actually emit something resembling love. And somehow, we project what we think they are because that frequency resonates with something within us. So, there are those who project their mother, loved ones, okay? Any kind of loved one possible, based on their mental state, etc. What do? They take this telepathy. Because it's also important to say this. When you are out of your physical body, if we can lie here, outside the physical body, there are no more barriers, we are open pages, you can fold yourself for a moment, but you can't. It can stay like this forever, and so when you are there, you are really books. Open. So whatever you have inside, in the form of code. They read it, but I read it too. I mean, it's normal. Communication is meta-communication. It just happens because that's the basic rule pretty much everywhere. So they perceive what you're projecting, and they support it. Why do they do that? Because this way, if you hesitate like, wait, really, mom? They can't get out of sync, you don't go out of phase. There's no risk your doubt will throw you off. Here's the first level of deception, which is subtle because it's not an attack like they do below, okay? It's really a high-level joke because it's sophisticated. It's not aggressive. So they keep you there. They let you arrive because at that point, they welcome you, and shortly after, and you don't have doubts. You don't have doubts because the light is truly welcoming. After that, this thing happens with the review of the light. We call it that, but anyway, the review of life. Okay? From what I could observe, as much as possible, is that you're immersed in a multidimensional experience. Meaning you're sprinkled from all parts of all your experiences, and so it's all simultaneous. There's no film unspooling. It's just immediate and immersive. But you see everything there, but not like in the false light where you don't focus on the negative. There, you see everything differently because you see your point of view and others' points of view. So you realize, you immediately understand where it was. Not the mistake, the misunderstanding. Okay? What you haven't acquired through the experience itself. Okay? So polarization is still present in the experience because you manage one thing without considering the other, and considering that the other, beyond a certain point, is absolutely perceptible like you because we are all really the same thing. Identified, apparently separate, but on a certain level it is. We are all one, and this isn't philosophy. It's just how it is, from my perspective. So by being able to understanding the other's point of view leads to a resolution. In the sense of an understanding that I call an epiphany. Because it really is something. I understand. This was the original process of epiphany that allowed you. Be careful, this is a fundamental point. And when I understood it, it was truly an epiphany for me. The epiphany had to be transported into the physical body of the next incarnation. But not in the form of memory as we conceive it. In the form of imprinting on DNA. DNA is not just molecularly, it applies to all three bodies, okay? So what is imprinted? Put into the light. So you're there and you're in the body of light. What the body of light gains, as understanding had to be taken and brought into the physical body. That point. What we call oblivion. It would have remained a kind of oblivion, but with a much thinner veil. But anyway, that's another story. But within our being, the resolution would have been present. That is, epiphany. Therefore, in life, let's say, in the next life, speaking linearly, because from there you could also observe in this sense. It happened that you went back to what you hadn't understood and had become polarized. You didn't recognize it, but having inside you. Bravo. Who distorted and corrupted all of this? We all know who it was. It was those who are the ones of the light. They are those, if we can call them archons, whatever you like. That, wanting to, they told me. One of them told me. Said, he was an operative though. So he could have told me a bullshit story. But I'm telling it to you like this. He told me that, fundamentally the purpose was to have an experience, which is also an experience, and therefore, from their point of view, it's going. Okay, good. So, it's not a form of moral malice as we might conceive it. They have no morals. They polarize because they are entities exactly as we were. Meaning, we descended into duality as entities of light. It's not that they are different from us. Okay? The point is they chose a path. They chose a path after seeing dynamics in duality that were unexpected, which is the dynamic coming from the dynamic equilibrium created in polarity and whose. The residue is the louche. Okay? So this stuff here created in them. Oh, my voice is starting. Created in them not the necessity. The will to experience this type of experience. So it starts, tell me yes, 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 yes. Initially, there was no malice. At least no intention to harm. Then it became an addiction. Very good. Later it became the intelligent necessity. They are intelligent. But of course I am. It's just that their intelligence has stabilized on one type of purpose. So, the difference between us and them. Fundamentally, we are at an advantage. Compared to them on a level. Spiritual, I'd say, and that we, being here, have the ability to decide which side to be on in A. Certainly, the sense is to experience both parts and all the nuances in between, like a pendulum. Okay? Any one of us, I believe, has had a day where they were ecstatic. So, from the positively polarized side of the pendulum. The next day, furious like a panther that would have split everything, and the other part over there. Okay? Well, in between there are infinite shades. Well, we can do this, and this is free will. To choose what to be. To choose how to vibrate. How to live at what frequency. Okay? For me, this is the book. Arbitrary. Everything else is just ornamentation. Okay? It's not choosing whether to go to the mountains or the sea. That's bullshit. It's really choosing the pendulum. Okay? They're granitized on the negative side. That is, and they've manifested a whole series of entities. Of bodies, not. Of entities, excuse me. Of bodies to their vassals. Practically structured in a way to make their structure extremely distorted, spiritually speaking. That's why all those we call aliens are so crude. So sinister compared to our point of view because they have a structure within the realm of possibilities. So they also have a form of escape from this situation. But it's definitely more complex than ours. Okay? So in reality, we are not in such a terrifying position. The most is to understand. This is also recognized by Zaken that we are in a terrible situation. But we're the only ones who have the possibility to, yes. Exactly. To get out of it. Exactly. Yes. So we can't always consider ourselves bastards of the universe because that's not the case. Okay? The more we understand it, the more we understand our true nature. It's all there. Because these gentlemen are at a certain point after you've understood a whole series of things. A form of compassion arises that isn't the Christian compassion of turning the other cheek. All these things here. No, it's understanding how things are without moving from your center. Okay? It's not getting caught up because all the poor little things. No, 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 no. It's about understanding how things are, but remaining whole. That's true compassion for me. Is knowing how they are. Understanding their state deeply, and by doing so, you create a crash in their environment. You create a crash because the compassion is the only thing that compassion I'm talking about, not the one that's commonly thought of. That kind of compassion is not contemplated and cannot be contemplated because it requires a mental, and not just mental transition, but also a heartfelt one. To recognize the other as part of yourself. Because if at the moment a predator recognized the other as part of itself, it would stop being a predator. You get it? MHM, yes. So this thing is absolutely not within their program and a structured program within their vassals. If a message of this kind is passed to their vassals, a crash occurs because they don't know how to handle it. They can handle the sword. Fire, without a doubt. Okay? And it definitely is necessary. So when you say we need to beat him up, yes, of course, absolutely. But it's not the only way, and it's not the final step, because first of all, we need to stop being victims. So the transition is from victim to warrior. Okay? The victim must transform into a warrior, and therefore must wield the sword. They can't not do it. Okay? So I mean, there has to be. I passed the part where I hit him with incredible blows and fought. But to fight in a non-philosophical sense. No, 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 really fight with your nails. With your teeth, with terrifying effort. Taking the fear. Setting it aside and facing the problem. But physically, on an astral level or otherwise, but physically. But at a certain point, you understand that this. What doesn't interrupt the problem, because it doesn't interrupt it. It interrupts it at the moment. Okay? You break free from the game in the moment. But they don't stop bothering you. They don't stop. They continue because in the end, that struggle creates fuel for them. Okay? It's still a luxury because you're emitting a specific action with an intent that is polarized while you make this transition. At a certain point, the warrior can transform into the warrior of himself, where you are still and cannot be moved. These are experiences that need to be lived, so I don't know. However, I'm referring to not going around with a war mindset. I'm referring to this. Oh no, but look. I guarantee you, Claude. When you find yourself with these guys jumping on you in the astral plane, in dreams, or in other things, the first reaction is to beat them up. Really? Because at some point you have to break free from this grip. Because they are morses. They are really energetic morses. But they become material because when you vibrate at it's the same frequency as them. You can no longer pass through the walls of your house. They are material as perception because the same frequency creates the sensation of physicality. Okay? This is why many alien abduction experiences feel physical. Many are but some seem physical, but are actually astral. But why? Because they are the ones vibrating at that frequency and doing things from their matrix, which I call the explicated. Because it's manifest. Because it's its own world. It's not a fluid emotional plane. It's truly a world. Worlds, and they are on various frequencies. Some of them are those of aliens. At least I'm an M2, and so when you are out with the astral body, vibrate it there. Same frequency, and they can take you into their world. And so you perceive the physicality and can do things on the energetic bodies that reflect on the physical body. And so you find scars, you find things that they don't really make sense, because they are the scars of the other bodies of the astral body, of the second body. Then, there are also the physical ones, because there were microchips. I've seen them. I've never had them. But you know, they are real things and not from. Sure, I'm not the one saying it's not like that. But there's also a whole other aspect that's more subtle, but definitely real. Extremely loyal, real and painful. Okay? And you see, then the parentheses open, will never finish. If you want to stop me, Claude, you decide. I'd like to understand. So when one arrives in the afterlife conscious, who has structured themselves, who has worked, what should they do? Okay. To avoid falling into any traps. So, the moment you are fully integral consciousness, and you have it truly embodied, another gateway will open, and then probably the tunnels of false light. What stuff, you can't even post it. They get in your way because they're not in frequency with you. Okay? Simply, yes, another opening will appear, which is a bridge. That from M2, because these base gates normally open from M2, but even if it ends up in the light by mistake, the one M3 can also be open from there because this type of boat isn't geographical. It opens when you're ready, it opens when you're there, okay? There's nothing geographical about this. I call the passage the dark passage because it's fundamentally black, and it's not about exiting the astral plane like the shaman did in the video you sent. That's another thing because... Okay, I don't want to miss it, I want to answer. Let's remember that the shaman in question spoke of certain things when there was practically no information about it. So sure. Did she commit it too? No, but he did a great job for me. Did a great job. Hats off to him. Actually, if you happen to find her. The problem with this lady is that she thinks she's a bit too much and doesn't want to put herself out there. From what I have. Got it? You don't want to put much in. Play, you don't want to put yourself into conversation, and I think that committing the second one, if in the first one in the first video he said some things that, we can clearly a being relegate to naivety or little experience. Now, he's making some very rough mistakes. Let's put it that way. Well, experiences too. Anyway, if by chance you hear what I'm saying and ever want to discuss it, I'm open to any kind of a comparison, because I certainly don't want to say that all of this, through indirect means, what are you saying? What you are, it reached me, and it doesn't seem to me that it's understood. So therefore, clear, too bad for her, not for us. Okay, I want to answer your question because it's important. So, I encountered this gateway many years ago, because when I did, let's say, the M3 tour at one point, I was flanked by another part of me that didn't have me. Nothing was explained during the entire tour. It simply showed me certain things because it was right that I should understand. Not that I should be told who knows what. At a certain point, though, after the tour was over, I asked him, "Yeah, whatever, I got it. Cool, cool, because I still didn't get some details. Nice, but how do we get out of here?" And so, at that point, the message I received was, you get out, but you have to get there yourself. I'll take you to the best place. This was more or less the concept. Even though it's not linear, communication is all in packets. But that's fine. Informational packages, I mean. I found myself in the higher environment. We could say, with the higher frequency of M3. And I already told you this one. Claude, it's in the book. It's already out. Do you want me to tell it, or should I get straight to the point? Tell me. Go. I'm going. I was much younger than I am now. So it happened about 15 years ago, and I was there and said, okay. What do we do? We were in a place where there was nothing. I was always in M3. All the cool lighting, but not. There was nothing, no images, no. There was nothing, and at a certain point it opened this dark passage, or dark, basically a black hole. That drove us crazy. I tried to approach it, and the very instant I did, a staircase, a huge staircase, manifested before the opening, pointing almost in a shape triangular. I'm not sure if I can convey the image. With the opening that rose far away, well, I'll take the ladder, and as soon as I put this little foot on, the little foot, well, this discussion is visible. As soon as I intended to take the step, I got scared by a guy who I then called the Threshold Guardian, which was clearly an entity. I mean, it wasn't just my projection. I had some doubts about this being a projection. But no. It was the lens itself projecting into. The same way I explained to you before. And it projected not the man with the beard. Because I dismantled this god stuff a long time ago. Yes, but I am a Libra, so I'm tendentially an aesthete. Okay? And so? What did he do? Yeah, it's almost funny. He put on an image of a male character. My ideal man, telling me that he was God. He was God, and that I had to bow to his majesty. Me, as much as this guy was, it was embarrassingly beautiful. Okay, it was clear, I understood it immediately, that it wanted to intimidate me and fascinate me at the same time. Perhaps it was the only image in that moment of my life that could somehow make me feel young again. Let's put it that way. And nothing, at that point, he, in the meantime, was getting bigger and bigger. No, bigger and bigger, very tall, something immense. I said, well, but even less than that and okay. And I just laughed in his face. It just came out, I didn't have to think about it. It wasn't exactly instinctive. It was. A laugh came out so deep, so explosive, that this thing, because the concept that God was there, I had already solved it by MO, so this stuff just exploded, whatever. So he started to fade away. More and more, becoming more and more. Smaller and smaller. Until it vanished, and then the stairs vanished, and I found myself in front of the dark portal. 15 years ago, I didn't feel the urge to go in there. It was enough for me at that moment. I wasn't ready. Evidently, even though the guardian I had already passed, I also had to face that passage, because I already had to a bit. Just a moment to digest all this. The light, which was still a long digestion, huh? So I didn't go in. And I was saying, well, I know the way. All right, next round I know where to go. I mean, when I die, I know where to go. I closed it there. Life, and then there was life in the middle of life. There were other things to do in the meantime. other things. Things to manage, other things to understand. My personal journey, not to be concluded. To continue or to explore further, so I left it there. Then when I heard from you, from your guests talking about a dark passage called Awe. Okay, fine. Now let's go and see it. In the meantime, I had grown. In the meantime, I had matured internally, and so I felt I had faced all my inner demons, meaning my traumas. My stuff. Okay? Because you still have to deal with this stuff. There's nothing you can do about it. And I had also faced and resolved a whole series of nighttime aggressions. The emanations, a whole chaotic mess, and as a result, I felt ready. And so, in this recent period, about a year and a half or so, I've started trying to find a way back in. In the end, I managed it, and in the book, I'll explain all the various attempts. But I don't want to get sidetracked now. Getting inside was incredible. Incredible because, okay, first of all, I didn't see the Guardians because I had actually passed it a long time before. There isn't really a time discrepancy. So that's it. But when you get there, the Guardians are absolutely there and must be faced. Guardians do nothing but reflect yourself. Just as it reflected other things I needed to resolve. Okay? I mean, the aesthetic part, the image, okay? Everyone has their guardian, or their guardians to face because maybe they are the last. A crumb of you that needs to be solved, or maybe more than one crumb. But if the dark ship is already placed before you, it means you can make it. No, it's a good clue, let's say. Exactly. So once you find them, you find the guardians in front. They have to be on the threshold, or just inside. A little, it doesn't matter. But these ones show up, and you need to maintain that famous absolute integrity. Alright, so we've passed the guardians. Let's enter. The feeling upon entering is being in the whole. In the sense that you are immersed in something we defined as an aqueous state, and Rian also defined amniotic fluid. Just to give an even more viscous idea. Because it's empty, it's dark, there are no reference points. She saw a little star at the bottom, which, it's not a little star, but anyway to understand what we believe is the point of consciousness itself. I mean, it's not something detached from you, and if you recognize it as detached from you, you go out, meaning you leave, you come, meaning you return. Use because it cannot be projected. Nothing that isn't us. On a level of consciousness, we must know, understand. Really know, not just understand that everything outside is us and must be recognized. Okay? So even if you see this light, it's still a point of consciousness that is your inner compass. Somehow projected, but it's still you. There's nothing else projecting something for you. There's no God at the bottom of this. There are no angels. There's nothing. It's just you, and that's it. So it's crucial to maintain absolute composure because you'll get lost. You get overwhelmed. The risk is getting lost because you're overwhelmed by memories, knowledge, experiences, everything that was encapsulated within the soul, hidden in the unconscious, hidden deep inside us. It comes and overwhelms you. I call them oceanic waves. You have present limpet of the waves? Those big ones, not the little ripples on the shore, the actual waves. It's so strong that if you don't have absolute centering, it can overwhelm you, and you might have doubts. It's really wavering. So you need to maintain absolute focus. By doing this, you can get past the passage. I call it a bridge. That takes you out of the dual matrices and technically reconnects you with your higher self, which is nothing more than the part of you that projected our infinite individualities. Because it's not just us here. There are infinite ones. Infinite, maybe not. Infinite, countless us in various spaces and times. And these are the simultaneous lives. Parallel ones, which Ricardo will talk to you about later. Okay? Which was a very complicated topic because, honestly, I was the first to go a bit crazy trying to understand it. But they are all contained within the higher self, because it is us in all our countless facets that has experienced duality in every way it desired. Not only here on Earth, because I have seen other identities of mine elsewhere in places that are not me, Luna. I am in another identity. So it's an I that goes beyond my identity. Here it's an all-encompassing I relative to manifest identities. Okay? So, if you pass the passage, great, you go back there, and then you can do whatever you want. If you don't, if you go, and here's the coolest thing I found, there's a back door. I called it that because it really looks like a back door. It's a cross passage. That almost seems like I don't say a prize, but it's still like, okay, you're close around here. We'll manage to do better, but really better. This time, because if you go through this back door, you re-enter the flesh to solve that fragment that made you hesitate. But you return with talents, memories, knowledge that this time is imprinted in the DNA and therefore slowly comes back out. That's why child prodigies, rather than a whole bunch of people remembering things. You pass through there, you come back with fragments of memory. Okay? Because even though our bodies are still poorly structured, in the sense that they've manipulated them I don't know how many times, because they truly massacred these bodies to give us that thin veil. A veil of reinforced concrete. But since there's the DNA structure, from that point on, there's no stopping it. No concrete structure can block the return of this knowledge. Okay, that's fantastic. Then we'd have to talk about the light plane, because it needs to be understood. Also that, because who isn't, but not. Now, if you want, we can do another interview, if you want, because maybe another interview where in my opinion, we could maybe answer some questions that seem like the ones that need to be answered. Anything else you'd like to add that we should explore further from what we discussed today? What do you say? Okay. Anyway, in the perfect document I sent you, the part about the light is quite dense. It tells a few things. So anyway, there will be some important passages. So yes, I can answer questions as much as I can. Yes, obviously as long as they are things I've seen, yes. Otherwise, I'll tell you, I don't know. Fantastic. Okay. Did you see? It went well. What was needed? What was needed? No, whatever. Okay. No, this way it feels a bit like chatting with friends, so it works well. Okay. We are chatting like friends, indeed. Okay, thank you. I truly thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I thank everyone who has followed. Thank you all. All right, see you next time with the others. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Luna. NAB, thanks to you, Claude.